me. They kind of can't finish one project, so I'm there to keep people focused. And then I want to make sure I pass on some solutions and some systems so that they can stay organized long after I leave, that they make lifelong decisions. So I get to go into their homes and see those spaces where most people they would never let their friends or their guests see those spaces. I get to see all those hidden spaces, and I still love my clients dearly. In fact, that brings us closer, I think, when we get to do that. But yeah, just getting them more organized.
So is there anything that specifically causes a person to be disorganized? I mean, there are some people, I think, they have a clean gene, and then there are other people that don't have that. So what are the typical causes for disorganization?
So the biggest thing is lack of making a decision. They'll start with a pile of papers. They'll make 12 piles of papers out of those and work on them all day. And then at the end of the day, they just kind of round them all back up and make this one pile of paper again. So they're not making any decisions. I will hear people say, I cleaned out my garage, or I went into my office on a Saturday and got it all organized, and just weeks later, it looks like I did nothing. And that's because they're rearranging as opposed to getting more organized. So that's one of the biggest things, is just making decisions on their things. But there are other causes, health-related problems. I've worked with people who have long-term health problems. I've worked with people who are actually bedridden. They have ADHD. They can lose a loved one, and their grief can cause depression. There's lots of different reasons as to why someone might be disorganized. All very good reasons when I talk with someone. It's never about someone being lazy. It's more about they just don't know how to go about getting out from under their stuff. That's too overwhelming for them, and they just need some help.
Now I look at organizing as a continuum. So you kind of have people in the middle, you have disorganization, and then maybe you have hoarding. What's the difference between being disorganized and then actually being a hoarder?
Okay, so let's start with hoarding. A hoarding client would have an overwhelming amount of things, and they say they want to get more organized, but another part of their brain won't let them. So one side of their brain is saying, hey, everything you're saying makes sense. I know it's ridiculous that I'm keeping these things, but their other side of their brain, when we go to start touching things, shuts them down, and they suddenly they just struggle. They have fear, like fear will enter the picture, and they just can't move forward. So that's a more of a hoarder. They have a lot of emotional stuff going on, and that can be very frustrating for both of us, trying to work with them and trying to help them through their things. Someone who's just more disorganized, there's, again, those reasons why they're disorganized. One of them could be just no one ever taught them how to get organized. So if you think about, going to school, you probably never took a class in high school, college, about how to get organized. Yet we're thrown into having our own homes or apartments. We're thrown into a career. Sometimes we have children and all that school papers come in, and we're just overwhelmed with all of these things, but no one ever taught you how to get organized. But when I enter the picture with someone like that, they are ready to listen. They are ready to take the advice. They feel better when things start leaving their home, where a hoarder will start having anxiety over things leaving their home. And sometimes that's just caused because people's things, when you're a hoarder especially, is their security. So it's like you're taking their security away from them when you're removing things from their home. So hoarders and disorganized people, it's the same thing. It just has to do more with emotionally being able to let go.
So I think about the pom-poms I still have from high school. Uh-huh. And what do you do with those individuals when you're trying to get them organized and you're like, okay, you've got pom-poms from high school and you're probably not going to use those again. What do you say to somebody like me? It's like,
right. So let's say you have the pom-poms and we come across those. It can depend where those pom-poms are. If you have them hanging on the wall and you love them, like say you have them in a basement, in a fun room in your basement, and it's just a memory for you and you love looking at them and it's just fun, or you let your daughter play with them when she was younger. That's one thing. And I say keep them. You're enjoying them, that's for sure. Just keep them. There's no problem with that. But if they're just stashed in a box somewhere in your basement and you haven't seen them forever, and you know they're there, but you haven't touched them for maybe 10, 20, 30 years, then that's where we're going to have a conversation, because anything in boxes can take up space in your home. It can start, if you start having too many boxes, it can start making you feel overwhelmed. When people have too much stuff in their home, sometimes they don't even want to come home anymore, and I feel like your home should be a haven. So everything you have in your home, we're going to talk about how's it enhancing your life or how's it affecting your life negatively.
Well, I'm going to brag about your skills because I know I utilized you a time with my team. We were going into a larger office space, and I was like, we are going to set this office up the right way so that we're going to have someone come in, a professional organizer, so that everybody knows where everything is. And that engagement was fantabulous. So it's not just for individuals, it's for corporate interests as well, for you to be able to set up office space so that people can cross-train and know where files are when someone's absent. That's what I found to be amazing. I also found that because you had taught all of us your box system, it's an organizing system, how to use your papers and how to file things, so that I only wanted to handle something one time. If something came across my desk, I wanted to be able to put it in a waiting folder if I was waiting on a return call. Well, when I was interviewing, I was asked a question about what organizing system do you use, and I was like, blah, I was able to just blurt it out because I have been taught that system. It is an amazing system, and I would highly recommend that for someone. And I'm going to brag about your skills. We have actually a photo. If we could see a before photo of a job that Lori did, let's talk about this photo for a minute.
Okay, so let's just pretend like this is your room, and this looks familiar to you. When I worked with this client, the first thing that I asked her was, what's the purpose of this room moving forward? Because I need to know that information, because when you know the purpose of the room, you can quickly start deciding what belongs in the room and what does not belong in the room. So she said, this is my living room, and I want to come home, and I want it to have a place where I can relax. I want to have a place where I can feel calm. I want to be able to read in this room. And I want to start having people over just to watch a movie, just to have girls with a glass of wine. I just want to wind down in this room. And everything that she was saying that she wanted to do in this room does not look like the picture that you're seeing here. And so when I know the purpose, we can start seeing some mistakes that she's making, if that's her goal for the room, such as the paperwork everywhere. It's okay if you want to bring paperwork out and work on it in your living room. You can watch TV, you can talk to someone. It's okay to work on it, but it's not a place to store paper when you tell me you want this to be a calm environment and you want to be able to have people over. So the paperwork, we had to create a space, an extra bedroom to become an office for her. She also had lots of boxes in that room that belonged to her deceased aunt and mother. Both of them had passed away, and she was just having a hard time letting go of those things. So of course we had to work through that grief, and we're going to talk about that here, I think, a little bit more about the grief and letting go of some things. And so when you know and then I also have a conversation with my clients and figuring out what they want to do moving forward in their life. And one of the things that she said she wanted to do is be able to play the piano or use a keyboard and learn how to play the piano. So if we can see the after picture, we will see some changes. Wow. So this is the exact same room. Now, she did run out and treat herself to a new couch, which I thoroughly think she deserved at this point in time.
Wow.
And we now see, of course, the keyboard that she wants to start learning how to play, and this was the best room for it. So yes, our before, we could not have company in here and feel calm and peaceful, and now we can. And so basically, you're going to go through every room in your home, stand at the doorway, and ask yourself, what is the purpose of this room? What do you want it to do? How do you want it to function moving forward? Not how it's been used, but what is the ideal space, the ideal thing that you want to do in that space. And then start figuring out how to make that happen. So once you know the purpose, it was pretty easy to put this room together. And the amazing part, and what I love about this client, is I never stepped foot in her home. We completely did this via phone conferences together. She showed me those pictures. I told her what I suggested she do, and she did all of that on her own without even my help. So I was very proud of her.
Lori, that is amazing. We actually have someone in the audience who asked a question. They said, they had a pristine home where you could eat off the floor. That's how clean their house used to be. And now because of health reasons, they're not able to do that anymore. What kind of advice would you give someone like that that's just struggling because of health reasons?
Right. Well, it can also it can depend on, is it a short-term situation or a long-term health situation. Short-term, I just tell people, hang in there. When you get better, we can start getting these things put back together. But let's say it's long-term. Maybe you're confined to a wheelchair now. You really have to start taking a look at your life and what it looks like moving forward in this case, and start keeping those things that are going to enhance your life for the new life that you have. We just have to accept what's happened and, try to, if people are willing to come and help you, they're going to be more likely to want to help you if you have a good idea of what you want your life to look like moving forward.
Wow, thanks for that. And thanks, audience. If there are any questions, certainly send them in, because Lori is just like a wealth of information. When do people really realize that they really need your help?
So unfortunately, people usually call for my help when they've hit rock bottom. Their spouse is about ready to leave because of the hoarding situation, or their boss is about ready to fire them because they're not getting their work done properly. So unfortunately, people wait. And so my advice to everyone is start doing something. Start using the skills that you have, moving forward with some organizing while you're healthy, while you don't have a health crisis. Or, people will call me because they have a sudden move, whether it's because of a divorce or because their jobs changed and they have to move across the country. People are often hiring me because it's a crisis. And so my biggest advice is to do 20 minutes a day right now while you're healthy, and you can make decisions for yourself.
That's great advice. So what's the toughest organizing job you've had?
Well, I love them all, regardless of my client and how bad the situation is. I love getting into those spaces and helping people. But I have to say, I was on the, many of you know the national hoarding shows that are out there. There was one called Hoarders and Hoarding Buried Alive. And when they came into Dayton and Cincinnati, I was hired to help on those jobs. And I will say those were quite challenging. The first, both spaces, it's hard to walk around in the house. It's hard to get around. The first client had a lot more trouble with the emotional side of letting go, where the second client was much more successful because she kept her goals in mind and was able to move forward. But I would have to say those two situations were the worst situations, but it's still a pleasure to work with anyone.
So has there ever been anyone you just couldn't help? That it was just beyond something that you could
Usually I can help my clients, but there are a few times where I just tell them, I think you need to work with a therapist before continuing with me. People go through some traumatic things in their lives, and loss of a loved one, and sometimes they have to work through their grief, their depression, before they're ready to work with me. Now, I've been doing this for 14 years, and so I will not call myself a psychologist or a counselor, but I definitely have to offer some counseling and helping people through a lot of the things that they've been dealing with. So with my 14 years of experience, I have been able to help people move forward and help them untangle some of that emotional stuff that they do have. But yeah, every once in a while I have to just tell someone, let's work through some therapy first, and then I'll come back, and you'll be more ready for me to help you.
Well, I probably will need therapy to get rid of my pom-poms, I'm telling you that now.
We'll talk about that off camera.
So what's the first step to getting organized? If someone's out there in the audience and they're thinking, that makes sense to me, that's something I need to do, what's the first thing they need to do if they want to try it on their own? What would you tell them?
If you want to try it on your own, which I highly recommend everyone try, the first thing surprises people that I say. You need to get out a pen and a piece of paper. We're not going to start with the stuff. So when I work with a client, I either sit at their kitchen table or a couch or wherever we can find a space to sit, and we have a conversation. And during that conversation, what I'm trying to get out of them is their goals. And so I need to know what they want their life to look like from this moment on, moving forward. I don't care what they've been doing. I don't care what their hobbies were, what they were attached to. None of that's irrelevant to me at the moment. My goal is to figure out what their goals are. And I don't just come out and say, so what are your goals? Because honestly, if I would, some of my clients would say, I don't have any goals.
Right.
They're so depressed, they just don't have any goals. And so there's 3 questions that you can answer to help with this exercise. The first one is, who do you want to spend more time with moving forward? So if I'm in a room with someone and I see a picture of a young child, I'll say, oh, who is this? And they'll say, oh, that's my grandson. I don't get to see him often enough. Okay, well, there's a goal that we need to write down that you want to be able to see your grandchild. Or they'll say, my daughter won't let him come to my house because it's too messy and it's not safe. Okay, we need to make this a safe environment so that you can have your grandson in your house. That's a goal, and we write that down. The second thing is, what experiences do you want to still have moving forward? So that would be your bucket list items, things on your bucket list. So is this that you want to travel? Do you want to learn a new hobby? Do you want to downsize? Do you want to move to a different state? So what experiences do you still have that you haven't done that you still want to have? Write those down. So basically your bucket list. And then finally, write down things that just make you happy on a regular basis. Because you can't always do your bucket list stuff. You can't travel especially during COVID right now. We can't always travel and do the things that our big picture goals. And so you have to have some things that just sustain you every day. So for me, that's walking my dog. It makes my dog so happy when I pick up that leash that it makes me so happy to see her just trotting down the sidewalk. So that would just be a little goal. I want to make sure I walk my dog every day, a couple times a day, in fact. So figuring out your goals, and do that by figuring out who do you want to spend time with, what experiences do you still want to have, and so your bucket list, and then just what makes you happy every day. Now, look at that list and start looking around your home. The things in your home are either going to help you reach those items on that list, or they're going to keep you from reaching that list. And that stuff that keeps you from reaching that list, that's the stuff that we're really going to focus on. So if you tell me you want to be a cheerleader in the future, I'm going to say keep those pom-poms. But if you tell me lots of other goals that you have, then we're going to have a discussion as to how those pom-poms and things like the pom-poms are actually going to be keeping you from enjoying the life that you want to create for yourself.
Yes. Okay, I may have to consider those, Lori. Getting rid of them. Okay, let's talk about something just as basic as mail. Okay. I'm sure everybody in the audience watching has mail that comes to their home every day, right. Or maybe some are a little bit more sophisticated and have just internet mail. Mm-hmm. But what would you say to the person how to handle the mail so that they don't have stacks and stacks of mail? Okay, so this is a very common problem, and I want you to think back again. When you were in school, probably no one taught you how to deal with mail, and so it can pile up very quickly. So my first thing when it comes to anything is if you don't bring it into your home, you don't have to organize it. So we want to stop a lot of this mail from even getting to you in the first place. I do have out on my website, so it's my company name, forteorganizers.com. On my website, I have a tab called Resources, and you click on that Resource tab, and there is a PDF in there, a sheet, a document that will tell you how to get off mailing list. I highly suggest you take time to do that. Now, once you apply for some of these things, it will take weeks to get your name off those lists, but you will see a reduction in your mail. Also, your banks, credit unions, where you have your mortgage, those kind of or your investments, those kind of companies are very likely selling your name to other banks and organizations. That's why you're getting lots of credit card offers and things. So go into your bank or call your bank and tell them to get you off their mailing list for email, mail, and their phone call list while you're at it. And you're going to see a lot of reduction in mail when it comes to a lot of those financial things that you're receiving as well. But then
Now we've reduced it, but you still have a backlog of mail or you have new mail coming into the house. I created a cheat sheet here, also out on my website. You're going to see this on that resource tab for how to deal with mail or just papers in general. And this cheat sheet can be used whether the paper is 1 day old or 10 years old. If it's hidden under your bed and it's been there for years and years, you're going to use this same cheat sheet for that. So when you look at a piece of mail, I want you to start making decisions, because remember, the lack of making a decision is what's causing your disorganization. So we have to look at paper and make a decision. So you can decide to put it in the trash, put it in the recycle bin, or shred it for some of these things that come through. I want you to start a read pile so that you know how much reading material you have. And also in that read pile, I want you to put the catalogs that you think you might want to peruse and see if you want to order something. Put all of that in a read pile. And take that read pile where you actually read. So is that in a cozy chair in the living room? For me, that would be on my nightstand. I like to read in the evening in my bedroom where it's quiet. So take that material, those materials, and where you put them where you actually read. And then anything that needs filing, of course, you need to go and take those papers and get them filed. And then you'll finally be left with just an action stack. So that's going to be things like pay your bills or call the insurance company about something, those things that you actually have to take action on before you can just file something. And so by using this little cheat sheet that I have out there for you, you're going to be able to start sorting that mail so it stops stacking up, because I'm really asking you to make some decisions, and this little cheat sheet will help you with those decisions.
Well, those are great tips for mail, and I hope that the audience uses those tips, because I think everybody could stand to have a reading pile and a junk pile and just get rid of them. What about magazines and
magazines?
Newspapers?
So if I see them stacking up, I will encourage someone to maybe stop their subscription. And that can be really, really hard for people to stop the subscription because they're in the habit of getting it. And so we need to start breaking some of these habits if it's causing disorganization. So remember, when it comes to like getting rid of a magazine, you feel yourself having a hard time with that, I want you to go back to your goal list that I had you create earlier. How are unread magazines helping you reach those goals? How is it getting your grandson into your home in a safe environment? How is it helping you travel when you're ready to travel after COVID? How is it helping you get your dog for a walk? These unread magazines sometimes are collecting dust. They can be slippery if they're still in their plastic jackets, so they can become a tripping hazard. And I want you to think about, when you look at that pile, how does it make you feel? How do these unread magazines make you feel? Usually they bring up things like guilt. I feel guilty that I've spent money and I'm not reading these. Or I feel bad that I don't have the time to read these magazines. Generally, they don't make you feel good. And the things in your house should make you feel good, right? So pay attention to, are you in the habit of getting magazines, or are you actually reading them? And remember that free magazines will have a cost, because a lot of times if you order a magazine, they'll give you another one free, or a friend will say, hey, I can get a free friend subscription. Do you want me to sign you up? And of course, it's free. But free items in general have a cost. They will cost you space, time, or money in your home, and sometimes all three of those things. So everything that you bring into your home better reach your goals, because if not, it's going to cost you time, space, or money.
Well, I know that we have about 5 minutes left, and I want to talk about your book.
Okay.
Let's see, Lose Your Stuff, Find Yourself. And what made you write a book, and what do you think would be the best benefit that our audience would have from actually having this book and be able to put a lot of the tools that you talked about in practice? I'm going to put that right there.
Okay, so I wrote the book because I had requests from clients and from seminar attendees. So I'm a national speaker as well. And they just said, I want to be reminded of the things that you said today. Can you write a book? So that's what kind of motivated me to write the book in the first place. But I also wanted to make sure that I was able to help people even long after I'm off this earth, because the things that I talk about in the book will never go out of style. The book is written for people who feel overwhelmed and need some inspiration and some guidance. And it's actually just a compilation of articles that I wrote for the Dayton Daily newspaper. And I just kind of took the more emotional ones, the things that people struggle with more emotionally, and put it into a book. And so it's very helpful. It's designed to be a quick read because I know my disorganized clients already have lots and lots of organizing books all over their home already. But it's designed, the chapter's a chapter you can read in just a few minutes. And I combine the information that I give with client stories and my own experience of getting organized and helping other people get organized. The book is available on Amazon. It's $15, and it's just a good place to start if you just don't know where to start. It covers some of the things that we talked about today, like setting your goals and things first before touching the first thing.
Wonderful. Well, Lori, I want to thank you. I've known you forever, it feels like, and she actually is so exceptional at this. I would encourage anyone, contact Forte Organizers, get the book, go to her website, but just change your life. And I think if you can write your goals down and look at those goals and find out what are those things that I'm missing because of stuff, I think that you'll change your life for the better. So thanks for joining us this evening.
Michelle,
Thanks,
thank you
Lori.
for having me. I really appreciate being here. And thank you, audience. And I really wish you the best of luck in getting organized. And don't wait. You can make a first step yet tonight.
Yeah, don't procrastinate. Do it now. Good night.
Who's that talking? And what are they talking about? Tabernacle Talks. That's what everybody is talking about. And watchers, you'll be talking about us too. We stream live every Tuesday evening at 6:30 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube Live, right from the studios in Dayton, Ohio. And finally, on September 29th, tune in to hear one couple's story about interracial dating and the challenges they face as America comes to grips with the call for a post-racial society. You definitely don't want to miss this show. Thank you for joining today's program. We hope you found it nourishing for your mind, body, and soul. Please leave comments because we'd love to hear from you.